like, hey, yeah, this lead may have come in and maybe it's an operations focused person, but we know in that type of company that IT needs to be heavily involved because of the change management, the digital infrastructure, all the different, internal and external systems that need to be integrated with. So how can I quickly go find out who those IT people are, even if they're not involved at the beginning? I know that I'm going to need to mention them and let my prospect know that I know who they are as well.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, I have with me Aaron Waters, who is the head of sales at Osa Commerce, where he drives the company's growth and by helping brands and retailers optimize their supply chain operations with real-time visibility and AI-driven orchestration. Aaron focuses on connecting supply chain ecosystems, enabling businesses to scale and improve efficiency across multiple channels, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Aaron, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me and thinking of me, and looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, man, I'm particularly excited to get into some of the work that you're doing here with OSA. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I'd love to start with maybe just a brief couple of minutes on who you are, where you came from, and how you landed the role of head of sales at OSA.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a product and graduate of Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. Originally from Central Florida and now residing in Southwest Florida with my wife and three girls. Lived in Atlanta for about 10 years, which is actually where I kind of transitioned from finance into the technology space, and then made my way into supply chain like I've been, the last 5 or 6 years. And so now back in sunny Florida full time and enjoying the beach when there's not a hurricane ripping through. And again, focused on working with retail and CPG brands. And I think the biggest thing is all that I've learned, throughout my 10 plus years of tech and specifically focused within sales and business development is the data analytical side of how to progress sales and internally and build out the right processes. But, also help companies really strategize around change management and innovation and digital transformation and how that fuels, an efficient supply chain.
Really cool. So sales has kind of been a big part of your focus as you were kind of evolving in the tech space.
Absolutely. Started out as, a BDR, SDR, as most did, really focused on business development and top of funnel. And I think that's always a great place to start for anybody in sales, no matter what industry or vertical it may be in, because it forces you to really listen if you're doing it the right way.
Right.
Being able to speak quickly, but be able to regurgitate facts and things that you hear from potential prospects or even current customers that, depending on the scope of what a BDR, SDR role may hold for you, and really applying that to the information and where you can drive value, at a high priority, but also long term.
So one thing I kind of picked up on was your uh, effort to focus on the human element of this and making sure that when you're connecting with people, it's a little bit more intentional as opposed to focused on closing and the numbers and deals and that sort of thing. And you use the data that you are able to gather, I guess, from your vantage point to help fuel some of that stuff. That sounds to me like a skill that you've developed along the way, something that you've kind of picked up from your early experience. Can you share a little bit about how that early other things in the early experience have helped kind of shape your approach to this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like most sales professionals, business development professionals, or growth professionals, I think is the probably more commonly used term today. You go through all these different methodology, trainings and sessions, and you're listening to podcasts, and you're on LinkedIn nowadays, and you're reading all these tidbits that folks are sharing across the industry. And it's really learning, how to kind of take little bits and pieces here and there from each of those different, kind of more polished people in the space of sales, and really learning how to make that your own. I truly believe that there's no one right way to sell, no matter again which industry or vertical you may be focused in or sitting in today. But I also think because I went from, originally being in finance to just typical, SaaS sales to marketplace sales to now, like I said, the last 5 or 6 years been focused solely on supply chain. I've been able to learn a little bit at each stop, and I've really made it a very kind of methodical approach and intentional approach to learn how different people evaluate different types of softwares based on their role in a business when they're going through, evaluating not just software, but partners. And I think that's the biggest thing in today's space that makes successful, sales individuals and growth individuals are those that can say, hey, my software can do this, but how can I be a catalyst for growth as a partner? Or how can I drive, um, measurable results? Or how can I help them reduce change management and the struggles of introducing new technology to maybe manual processes or legacy systems, to see that, hey, this is an efficient way to do it. Here's an optimized way to do it. And you have to be able to listen really closely and understand those things to be able to position yourself as a partner and, of course, your technology the right way.
So there's this difficult thing that we're tasked with as salespeople, which is to systematize a process that is fluid. And to your point, there's no one perfect way to sell. It's really about exploring somebody's needs and helping guide them through, their own thought process. And I think this is, to your point, this is one of the big things is like, as a salesperson, we're not necessarily here to push a product as much as we are to help manage that change. And I love that your thinking here is to be methodical about it, to create some sort of flow, some sort of qualification system or uh, framework to help guide people through that. What does that look like in a little bit more detail? I'd love to kind of dig into that.
Yeah, so kind of piggybacking earlier off, we talked about different types of methodologies out there. And I
Mhm.
think the one that really helped me kind of get that framework of thinking and that mindset when being introduced to companies that are, looking to potentially partner with us, and that's Keenan with gap selling. I think, finding that gap, there's a state where a company is today, and it's that, that current state. But then there's that future state of, hey, where do we want to be, with this type of project, or where do we want to be as a company? And sometimes they don't know what the specific project may be, or what the technology should look like, or what the processes should look like. Technology is involved, and so being able to help them and ask the right questions in between to say, hey, what's keeping you from getting, to that future growth, that future state, that future goal down the road, without even thinking about technology. It's not, hey, why are you trying to get there, and how can my technology help you do that? But it's, do you know how to get there? Do you know why you even want to go here? And based on where you are today and what's happening today. And when you're able to ask those right questions, but then again, listen to the answers and say, okay, now I see, what that gap may be in between. Then you can really start to position value and, functionality the right way. But then you help them say, okay, from a data standpoint, here's what's keeping you from getting there, and here's how us as a partner helps you do that. Or here's some of the things that are going to happen for you to get there, and it may not always be, nice and pearly and bright, which is again that change management term. But here's how we help you manage that, or here's how we help that be as efficient and as optimal as possible, so that that transition is not as tough as some may make it seem.
Mm. So I had somebody else on the show and we were talking about something very similar to this. And the point that they were making was some people don't even know that they have a problem. Some
Hmm.
people don't know that the problem exists and they've just figured out a way to exist without addressing it, which is n not an anomaly. It's not unusual to have a company just, duct tape a few things together and make it work.
Yep.
Um, so bridging to your point, bridging the gap, I think is what you're pointing at there between like, hey, we don't know, what's going wrong here, but we know that something isn't working properly because when we try to turn up the volume or scale or make something happen, we hit a roadblock. And so you now kind of come in and act as that conduit to help them discover what that gap is, and then how to maybe connect the dots there. And so, how do you approach this scenario where they are aware of the problem, they're aware of multiple solutions, and so now they're at that point where they're just vetting people or teams or solutions to make a decision on which one's the best for them?
Yeah, I think the and this may sound a little cliche, but it's truly consulting, versus selling. Say again, when you're asking those certain questions, and you start to build your experience and your knowledge, within your customer base today or within your industry as a whole, you start to say, oh, wait, here's your goals. Okay, well, in our experience, we typically see this is what's preventing companies from getting here, or here's what's preventing companies from achieving that in X amount of time or in the time frame that you're trying to achieve it. What does that look like for you today? Or here's what kept them, from achieving this or possibly getting in the way. Can you tell me a little bit? Is this similar for you? What does this look like for you? And then again, letting them say like, hey, okay, well, they've seen this before, or Aaron has seen this before. Aaron's been through this with a similar customer, or someone who looks and feels like we do for our brand or our retail footprint. Let me give him a little bit more, so hopefully he can guide me through that. And that's where also the analytical piece comes into being able to truly attach value, to the technology and the services and the partnership that we offer, to say, hey, not only are we just going to put a good solid foundation and digital infrastructure in front of you with technology, but here's the tangible results, here's the measurable results that you're going to be able to see, not early on, but also long term. And that's going to remove that gap, from that's preventing you from getting to that end result.
Right. So when it comes to
Right.
the connection then from their entry point into your ecosystem, particularly like the marketing engine, one of the common challenges a lot of businesses face is having the connection be clear from the point of, top of funnel discovery. Hey, this is why this person is here, all the way down to, your role where you come in and, hey, it looks like you came here for X, Y, or Z, let's move you along. So, what have you done to help keep those channels of communication open between those two departments and keep that efficiency flowing?
Yeah. For one, it's playing our part when, marketing asks for something. I think sometimes in companies, small and large, um, marketing teams want to make that effort. They
Hmm.
want to be more sales driven. And so sometimes they get to asking for certain nuggets, certain things from, sales or growth teams that are on the front line. And I've seen some sales teams kind of shut down on that. It's like, oh, here comes marketing again. What do they want now?
Yeah.
As opposed to today, where it should be taken, with joy as a helping hand, as an olive branch. And so giving that kind of that consulting, figure internally in the business. Hey, here's some content that marketing wants to put out, and they're asking for it. Being the first one to jump on that internally and saying, hey, I just got done working with a customer. We just onboarded a customer that experienced this exact same pain point, or that is using our technology or our services as a partner the right way, and being able to leverage that and always keep that dialogue there, so that way, as marketing's putting their content out, it's things that we can use on the front line on a daily basis, that justifies who we are, not just technology wise, but as a true partner.
Yeah, that messaging is so important because I get it. On one front, marketing can be good enough that you don't need a salesperson because people can self-serve online and make a purchase. Okay, so this is chicken and egg scenario, right? But then on the other
Mhm.
side, for more complex kind of solutions, marketing team doesn't necessarily do much in the way of selling, where the sales team now has to go out, form those relationships or partnerships, go deep with a person, provide a lot of evidence, build authority, build that rapport, and then finally introduce the solution. And then there was no need for marketing to begin with. But wouldn't it be easier if marketing brought in leads that were already warmed up and ready so that the efforts that the sales team had to put out weren't as great? Vice versa, if the salespeople were transparent enough with the marketing team about what's actually moving the needle with the people that are closing deals, marketing now has the ammo to go out and get those people and pre-sell them so that when they get in that environment, it's a lot easier for the salespeople. So there's this cohesiveness that's kind of necessary, and I love I love the idea that you were kind of pointing at, where creating that open channel of communication and allowing that to flow in both directions makes everybody's life a little bit easier. So to the end result here of, collecting leads, nurturing them, closing deals, getting people into the places where they need to be, what are you using in the way of, maybe the tools and technologies that are helping you streamline that? What's making your life easier?
Yeah, so from a RevOps standpoint, obviously, CRM is super important. I've become fortunate myself to be, pretty experienced and pretty well versed in most of the common ones out there. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that I'm married to one in particular. When you're talking about HubSpot, SalesLoft, obviously Salesforce and those tools, but not as much the tool as in the way that it's configured and the way that it's used. I think is most important. So whether that's as a sales leader, implementing those processes and having all those different use cases and scenarios of how a CRM is going to be used, or whether there's a RevOps person if you're in a big enough company and a big enough team to where there's a sole person or team responsible for that. And it's that same thing that comes into play, like we just talked about with marketing. Sales has to be involved in those conversations, and you should also have a rev ops team that's eager to meet, a weekly, maybe every other week basis, saying, "Hey guys, I notice usage is here. I notice you're doing this. I'm not seeing this," and it's not to micromanage, but it's to get the use out of those tools and what they're best meant for. Because internally, data is just as important as the data that you get, from the prospects that you're helping. Why are we winning deals? Why are we losing deals? Why did this retail customer who looks the exact same as this customer close in 3 months versus 9 months? Is it something that was in our control? And so that's why I believe that those tools and the CRM is certainly most important. But also from an efficiency standpoint, like you said, if marketing's doing what they're doing and we're collabing well, and they're the top of funnel is just blazing through. The last thing I want to do is have to manually go through, a bunch of steps to have to get the right outreach going and at the right time and the right place with the right people. I want to be able to use my CRM the right way, and hopefully it's integrated with the prospecting tools, from an account management standpoint as well. Like, hey, yeah, this lead may have come in, and maybe it's an operations focused person, but we know in that type of company that IT needs to be heavily involved because of the change management, the digital infrastructure, all the different, internal and external systems that need to be integrated with. So how can I quickly go find out who those IT people are, even if they're not involved at the beginning? I know that I'm going to need to mention them and let my prospect know that I know who they are as well.
Right. So where do you guys see a majority of new business coming from? Is it primarily from the marketing, sales, inbound, outbound efforts? Does it come from referrals and people talking about, how great the product is, or are there other things that are driving business growth?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn and all in-person activity. So when you think about trade shows, hyper focused on certain industry, events or weeks that are revolve around innovation, digital transformation, supply chain. Over the last year or so, as sales has become this very fluid um, process of what's the best way to reach someone, when's the best way, and how do I do it? Nothing beats being able to be right in front of the people who need you as a partner and possibly need your technology. So I would say over the last year and a half, those two things, the most, LinkedIn and anything in person, like I said, trade show related industry events, et cetera, have been the highest kind of generating activity top of funnel. But where marketing plays a huge role in that is understanding how to position, our brand, our company, or us as sales guys the right way. You can't just show up and have a booth on the floor or wherever it may be, or attend a dinner and think it's going to fall in your lap. It's making sure that we're understanding marketing is doing a great job of understanding all our other partners that are there, are there current customers in the area that we can invite out that can speak on our behalf, and we can invite other prospects to speak with. And so I've been fortunate enough my last couple of stops to have marketing teams that really get that and are fully engaged, and they're right there in the mix of everything, on those in-person events, with the sales team.
Yeah, and so I'm getting a sense that it's true to the nature of the initial talking point of our conversation was this is very human in terms of you guys just have this one-to-one, very intentional handshake deals. Um, but on the flip side, we're seeing this rise of the integration of artificial intelligence or AI
And
related tools, because some of it's not necessarily AI so much as it is just really intelligent algorithms. And so,
right.
well, let's just put it all in kind of in one bucket for now for the sake of the conversation and say, there is a rise of this. There's some innovation in terms of the creative elements, generative, where we can create images or ads or copy, that sort of thing. Where else do you see it fitting into the work that you're doing?
Yeah, just being able to optimize. I mean, it's funny, like internally, I mean, excuse me, externally, we sell optimization, collaboration, visibility in the processes specific to supply chain. So it's like we'd be kicking ourselves in the butt if we weren't doing that internally ourselves and leveraging, the tools that we use and those algorithm, machine learning, AI components of, hey, here's the data, here's your sales, pipeline velocity rates, here's your average deals to close, here's how many steps it takes to close these types of deals and these sizes of deals. And so being able to really tap into that and pay attention to it and have that at our fingertips allows us, again, say for instance, at a trade show to say, hey, we want to talk to these people, or maybe it's end of the year and we have a certain revenue related goal and we know we have this trade show. Let's focus on getting these types of customers there because we know if we get in front of them that they're more likely to close in this time frame to help us reach our revenue goals. And we know that we can help them with a much quicker project as opposed to X company who usually is a longer sales cycle because their projects are a lot more intensive or have a lot more change management involved. There's a lot more scoping and design that goes into, understanding are we the right partner for each other. So those are the things that I and the team, truly try to take advantage of and pay attention to literally on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's great. There's a lot of practical application there, and I think some stuff that people have been overlooking. To your point there, the data analytics and really understanding the flow and velocity and all the other elements of touch points and just where people are coming and going, and very very useful. Listen, Aaron, you've been so generous with your time and your wisdom here, and I'm very grateful for that. We're kind of coming to a close here. To put a bookend on this conversation, I wonder if we could look forward and maybe you share a little bit about what you guys are aiming at. What are the big goals? What are some of the exciting things coming down the pipeline for you and Osa?
Yeah, I think for one, at any company, it's growth. We went through a transition where went through a huge rebrand in the last couple of years. We've grown tremendously customer wise. When you think about net new, being able to have some really really big names within the retail CPG space, but also on the other side of our business, focused on logistics service providers and that vertical. And so for us, it's continuing to have that healthy balance to make sure that we're growing and that our technology is evolving with the ever changing and ever evolving world of supply chain, which, as anyone who knows anything about supply chain, literally changes on a daily basis, sometimes by the minute. And so it's being able to keep our listening ears on, keep our processes and our internal feedback close to our customers so that we hear exactly what that is. And I think we were in a lot of conversations with a lot of major players within the space. So we're doing something right. And so our goal is to be a common name in every single company that's evaluating, supply chain digital transformation and innovation and how they achieve collaboration and visibility across their entire supply chain.
Yeah, that's really exciting. What sort of challenges do you see yourself facing and how do you plan on overcoming some of that stuff?
Yeah, well, it is at the same time a heavily saturated industry, on the SaaS side of it, and players like us who offer these services. And so, I think for us, again, internally, it's how do we stay innovative as well? How do we stay? OSA literally stands for one step ahead. So it's how do we stay a couple steps ahead of some of the other players in the industry that are in these evaluations, and that potential customers that are looking at us are also looking at them, so that we can see not only are we a right sized fit partner and solution for them today, but here's how we're going to be with you 5, 10, 15 years down the road as your supply chain and your business continues to grow. And I think if we keep that mindset, which I'm sure we will, we'll have no problem doing just that.
Yeah, that's really exciting to be a part of something that is constantly in the right at that edge of innovation and as you mentioned, it's constantly changing and evolving. So it's exciting to see what you guys are going to be up to in a year from now, and I'd love to have you back on. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that, Aaron?
Yeah, so obviously there's a ton of information on our site, a lot marketing and sales driven, as we talked about. So it's just osacommerce.com. But my specific email is aaron.waters@osacommerce.com. And then of course, Aaron Waters on LinkedIn. Pretty active, as I mentioned, on LinkedIn. So I don't let a day or two go by without checking in and seeing if I need to respond to anything or if there's a great connection to be had. So definitely look forward to connecting with anyone and everyone.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to link to that in the show notes so that anybody watching or listening will be able to find you easily. On that note, if you're watching and listening and want to reach out to me and my team for any marketing or AI needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this conversation. Thanks for joining us in this episode, and I will see you in the next.